Hello there and welcome to World News Program coming to you live from Algiers. Let's get to the headlines. Dozens killed or wounded in new Zionist strikes on Gaza. The World Health Organization warns of a looming catastrophe as calls grow for Israel to fully withdraw. Also in our news, in Sudan, Al-Fashir is under siege. Civilians are suffering. The UN is alarmed and rights groups warn urgent action to lift the blockade. Next in our news, former U.S. official John Bolton says Western Sahara needs a referendum for peace. He blasts France's support for Morocco while rights groups demand respect for international law. And later on, Moscow accuses Kiev of dragging out the war. Zelensky tells Trump not to fall for Putin's promises as pressure builds for peace talks that protect Europe's interests. All this and more coming right up. Hello again and welcome to the news. It's great to have you with us tonight. First off in our program, dozens of Palestinians were killed and others were injured by Zionist gunfire and shelling targeting various areas of the Gaza Strip since dawn. Medical sources told Palestinian media that the death toll has now risen to at least 89 Palestinians killed by Zionist attacks across the Strip since dawn on Wednesday. Similarly, several Palestinians were killed and others wounded on Wednesday morning in a Zionist airstrike on the Zaytun neighborhood southeast of Gaza City. According to medical sources at Al Ahli Hospital, Zionist warplanes struck a house in the neighborhood, killing 12 Palestinians and injuring others. This came as the Zionist war continued to pound the Strip by land and air.
My cousin's house was targeted. Mahmoud Abu Daf and his children, their 2 children and all their children and women, while they were sleeping at 3 in the morning, sleeping in peace. Where do people go? Oh, Arabs and Muslims. Now all Gaza is targeted.
And in a similar development, many Palestinians were killed and others injured at dawn on Wednesday in Zionist shelling that targeted civilians southeast of Gaza City. Local Palestinian sources said Zionist aircraft bombed 10 sheltering displaced people near the University College on Street 8 in Tel El-Hawa, killing 7 Palestinians, including 5 children. The area also came under heavy artillery fire. In a statement, the spokesman for Gaza Civil Defense said the city has become a bank of targets for the Israeli military as it endures relentless assaults. And on the ground in Gaza, as famine deepens and desperation grows, aid efforts run by the occupation and backed by the U.S. are actually turning deadly, killing hundreds. With most of these operations failing, global voices are now urging the UN to take control. Here's Usama Ayadi with the report.
In one of the inhumane aid centers in the Gaza Strip, desperate Gazans endure hours of waiting for a morsel of food to quell their hunger, only to face death instead of relief. These harrowing scenes encapsulate the painful reality of starvation in Gaza, the humiliation of the hungry, and the lethal consequences of aid being weaponized against a population already devastated by relentless bombing.
Children speaking of wanting to go to heaven because at least they say there is food there. We hold video calls with our own humanitarians who are starving before our eyes. And this is not just a humanitarian crisis, it's a moral crisis that challenges the global conscience.
Aid drops, intended to provide life-saving sustenance, have instead become death boxes, bringing devastation rather than relief. Many of these airdrops fall in areas controlled by the occupation, while others tragically land on the heads of displaced families, adding to the mounting death toll. The use of aid as a weapon has become a grim hallmark of the ongoing crisis, as those who survived the bombings are now targeted through the very mechanisms meant to save them.
What made me go out to try and get aid is the food shortage. Hunger is killing us. My children have lost a lot of weight.
The American Zionist aid distribution centers have been transformed into arenas of mass killing. These centers continue to witness killings, further deepening the suffering of a people besieged and starved to death. The images emerging from these sites paint a stark picture of a population pushed to the brink. For more than 22 months of genocide, the occupation has attempted to control aid distribution, bypassing UN humanitarian agencies. However, these efforts have repeatedly failed, drawing condemnation from UNRWA, which has labeled the situation as a stain of shame.
Enough with this humiliation. Just go back to the first old way of aid distribution, so that we take aid with dignity. This parcel comes to us, and it's not even worth running after it and dying.
The occupation's plans are now sketching a new horrifying reality in Gaza, a starvation plan that targets over 2 million Palestinians in the already besieged Strip. The calculated strategy ensures that those who escape the bombs will not escape the agony of empty stomachs, completing a cycle of suffering that leaves no one untouched. As the world watches, the people of Gaza continue to endure humanitarian catastrophe of unprecedented scale, where even the act of seeking aid has become a deadly gamble. The international community faces mounting calls to intervene as the crisis in Gaza spirals further into tragedy.
Meanwhile, the World Health Organization this time says Gaza's health crisis is now catastrophic, with hunger and malnutrition spreading fast. Hospitals are overwhelmed, many struggling to treat injuries from chaotic aid distribution points. Let's take a listen.
The overall health situation remains catastrophic across the Gaza Strip. Currently, less than 50% of the hospitals and less than 38% of the primary healthcare centers across the Gaza Strip are partly or minimal functional. Also, we've seen a stark reduction in so-called medical points.
And politically, the Islamic resistance movement Hamas announced on Wednesday that a delegation led by its Gaza chief Khalil al-Hayya arrived in Cairo for talks. The movement said in a statement that the discussions will focus on ways and means to end the war on Gaza, allow aid entry, and end the suffering of the Palestinian people. Meanwhile, the Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs said the occupation military must completely withdraw from the Gaza Strip. In a statement on Wednesday, the ministry stressed that the priority now is to achieve a ceasefire and deliver aid, adding that the Zionist entity is committing crimes in both Gaza and the occupied West Bank. It also underscored the need to end the double standards. And in another development, the Turkish Foreign Ministry said Israel seeks to weaken Syria and destabilize it, adding that there are parties that do not want to see Syria stable. The Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan, during his meeting with Syrian Foreign Minister Assad Ashibani in Ankara on Wednesday, said Israel's expansionist policies extend into Syria. He stressed that the country is facing challenges and threats that require joint work and coordination to address.
There are Israeli efforts to expand and weaken Syria and create an atmosphere of chaos in it. This is unacceptable and will have an impact on the countries of the entire region. Turkey supports Syria, its sovereignty, and the preservation of its territorial integrity. We are optimistic about finding radical solutions to all the problems it faces, on the condition of not interfering in its internal affairs, especially by those who want to spread chaos.
And on the same occasion, Syrian Foreign Minister Assad Ashibani said his country faces many challenges, foremost among them what he described as the interventions and aggressions of Israel, which threaten the stability of Syria and the entire region. Let's take a listen.
Syria is today facing challenges which are no less dangerous than others, foremost among which Israel's interventions and attacks that threaten the stability of the country and the region as a whole. We are facing external challenges that seek to divide Syria and create chaos in it. We have worked to establish stability in all states areas and have launched many services despite the difficulties. We affirm that we extend our hand to every partnership and every country that respects the unity of Syria and the integrity of its territory.
And in another development, but still in the Middle East, in Lebanon to be precise, President Joseph Aoun says the country is open to working with Iran, but only on the basis of mutual respect and non-interference. Speaking in Beirut after meeting Iran's top security official, Aoun said some recent comments from Iranian officials haven't been helpful. He made it clear Lebanon won't accept meddling in its internal affairs from anyone whatsoever.
The language that Lebanon has heard recently from some Iranian officials is unhelpful. The friendship we seek between Lebanon and Iran should not be through a single sect or one Lebanese component, but with all the Lebanese people. We reject any interference in our internal affairs from any party, and we want the Lebanese scene to remain safe and stable in the interest of all Lebanese people, without discrimination. Just as Lebanon absolutely does not interfere in the affairs of any other country and respects their particularities, including Iran, it does not accept that anyone interfere in its internal affairs.
On a similar note, for his part, Ali Larijani said Iran wants to boost ties, with both the Lebanese state and its people. He denied any interference in Lebanon's affairs and instead called on other countries to stop meddling in the country's internal issues.
Foreign countries should not give orders to Lebanon. The Lebanese people are brave and can decide for themselves. Any decision taken by the Lebanese government that is in line with the resistance is respected by us.
Moving on to another regional development, this time in Africa. In Sudan, resistance committees in El Fasher say the RSF siege is creating a humanitarian disaster. Mohammed Al-Mustafa told our channel that conditions are dire and food, medicine, and other essentials are nearly impossible to find as the blockade tightens around the city.
The situation in the field is very difficult due to the blockade imposed by the Rapid Support Forces. This blockade will create a lot of problems. There is no way for the supplies to enter. There is no way for the movement to be normal from the city to the outside or from the outside to the city to the inside. There will be a shortage of supplies in the market. There will be a shortage of supplies, there will be a shortage of medicines, and there will be a shortage of necessities.
Meanwhile, the UN is sounding the alarm over the deadly attacks in El Fasher, where dozens were killed in the Abu Shouk camp for displaced people. A UN spokesperson said local sources blamed the RSF fighters and stressed that camps and civilian shelters must never be targeted. In Sudan still, the Human Rights Commission is urging the international community to help lift the siege on Al-Fasher. The chairman, Jama Al-Wakil, called for urgent aid deliveries to those in need, especially in Darfur and other conflict-hit areas, and stressed the need for unity to support efforts to improve human rights across the entire country. To another development in Africa still, former U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton is again calling for a self-determination referendum in Western Sahara. In a recent interview, he warned that Morocco's refusal to hold a vote, promised back in 1991, could threaten stability across the Sahel region.
Well, I think the government of Morocco didn't really want to concede limited autonomy. They certainly didn't want to have a referendum, which is where we got started in this back in 1991. And Baker tried a number of different approaches. Obviously, the initial Security Council resolution was a referendum and nothing else, becoming part of Morocco or independence. The Moroccans didn't like that. In 1997, Baker tried a different approach, and despite Morocco and the Polisario agreeing to that, nothing happened with it. And the same thing really played out again in 2000. The question is bigger than the Western Sahara alone. Stability in the Sahel, the many disagreements between Morocco and Argentina, the bigger picture of what Morocco wants. Does it want just the Western Sahara, or does it want part of Western Algeria and Northern Mauritania, as some Moroccan maps show? As long as there's instability in that critical region of Africa, the risk of the instability spreading elsewhere in Africa or being taken advantage of by outsiders or spreading to Europe remains.
On the same occasion, Bolton also criticized France, saying it's talking always about democracy but has never backed a referendum for the Sahrawi people. He added that Morocco's efforts to discredit the Polisario Front haven't held up under UN scrutiny, I'm saying.
Country that purports to support democracy around the world, just giving the Sahrawis a chance to vote on what their status is going to be should be an easy question for France, but they've never really supported it. Well, I think there have been a number of steps that Morocco's taken to try and discredit the Polisario. They've all been shown to be untrue under really intense international scrutiny for a long time, with observers from different UN organizations, the Red Cross and others, non-governmental organizations in the camps all the time. Well, I think Polisario for quite some time has done a very good job in keeping Western governments informed about what the situation is. I think within the African Union, they've kept basically unanimity on the position that the referendum is the way to go. It's hard to know what they could do more other than say, let the people have a vote. That's purely a process point. They're not insisting on substantive.
And in a related development, the Center for Analysis on Western Sahara is calling on France to respect international and European laws. They warn Paris against being complicit in the exploitation of Sahrawi resources and in violating their right to self-determination, holding French institutions directly responsible.
Western Sahara Analysis Center calls on France and all French public institutions to strictly respect international and European law. It strongly warns against the biased and misleading coverage by a French public channel that aired a report promoting what it called remarkable economic development in Western Sahara through Moroccan investments. Morocco has no recognized sovereignty over the territory, and its occupation is illegal under international law, as confirmed by International Court of Justice and numerous UN resolutions.
The Sahrawi human rights group Qadessa condemns Morocco's ongoing destruction and pollution along the shores of the occupied Dakhla. They say the occupation and its corporate partners are carrying out systematic environmental and economic crimes by exploiting marine resources on a large scale.
The Sahrawi Association of Human Rights Defenders, Qadessa, reports that amid an international media blackout and suspicious institutional silence, destructive fishing practices are taking place off the occupied coast of Dakhla. Moroccan settler fishermen, backed by Moroccan networks and companies, discard massive quantities of fish, especially non-commercial species, by dumping them back into the sea. The occupied city of Dakhla has become an open scene of looting and reckless exploitation of natural resources, with no environmental oversight or legal accountability, and all riches exported in total disregard of the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination and sovereignty over their resources.
Moving on to another topical development. Russia is accusing Ukraine of using peace talks as a cover to ramp up military attacks and drag out the war. At a Moscow briefing, a top Russian official claimed Kiev is escalating terrorist activities against Russian regions ahead of the upcoming US-Russia summit in Alaska.
As the upcoming Russia-US summit in Alaska approaches, the Kiev regime is escalating its terrorist activities against our regions. Just last night, from August 12 to 13, our armed forces intercepted and destroyed 46 Ukrainian drones. The Kiev regime has never thought about peace, nor does it now. It sees any negotiations as means to prolong military operations and cling to power.
For his part, Ukrainian President Zelensky says he hopes the upcoming US-Russia talks will focus on a ceasefire. Speaking in Berlin, he warned Trump that Putin isn't serious about ending the war and is trying to ramp up pressure on Ukraine ahead of the summit. Zelensky also called for a trilateral meeting with Trump and Putin, insisting Kiev must be part of any talks about its future.
I told the US President Donald Trump and all our European colleagues that Putin is bluffing. He is trying to put pressure before the meeting in Alaska, along all part of the Ukrainian front. Russia is trying to show that it can occupy all of Ukraine. Of course, this is their desire.
For his part, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz says European leaders have urged President Trump to work toward peace in Ukraine, one that safeguards both European and Ukrainian security. Speaking alongside Zelensky in Berlin, Merz praised Ukraine's readiness to negotiate, but made clear that Europe won't accept legal recognition of Russia's occupation. He promised Europe's full support for U.S. efforts to achieve a fair peace.
In Anchorage können wichtige Entscheidungen
The core security interests of Europe and Ukraine must be protected at the Alaska summit. This is the message we Europeans conveyed today to US President Trump. I can say that we generally agreed on the assessment of the current situation and on the goal that can be achieved next Friday. We made it clear that Ukraine must be present in the negotiations as soon as the follow-up meetings begin. We want the negotiations to proceed in the correct order.
Meanwhile, U.S. President Trump has warned Russia of very severe consequences if the war in Ukraine doesn't end soon. Ahead of his important meeting with Putin this Friday in Alaska, Trump expressed hope for great achievements and announced plans for a trilateral summit with Putin and Zelensky. He described his talks with European leaders and Zelensky as very good and friendly.
Face any consequences if Vladimir Putin does not agree to stop the war after your meeting on Friday?
Yes, they will. Yeah.
What will the consequences
there will be?
Sanctions, tariffs?
There will be, I don't have to say, there will be very severe consequences, yes.
And in another development, the UK, France, and Germany say they are ready to reimpose sanctions on Iran if no deal is reached on Tehran's nuclear program by the end of August. In a letter to the UN, the three foreign ministers warned they will activate the snapback mechanism to bring back all international sanctions if diplomacy fails. And finally, in our news, in Tunisia, a medical technology startup based in the coastal city of Sousse is revolutionizing the future of prosthetics by developing AI-powered electronic prosthetic limbs, the first of their kind in the country. Nabil Khazini tells us more.
Along the sunny coast of Sousse in Tunisia, a new wave of innovation is changing how prosthetic limbs are made. Cure Bionics, a startup founded by Mohammed Dawafi in 2020, is creating smart, lightweight artificial arms that work with muscle signals. Using 3D printing and advanced sensors, their prosthetics are designed to be easy to use and affordable, giving children as young as 8 a chance to move and live more freely. This is not just technology, it's hope brought to life.
Cure Bionics
started when I was studying at the National School of Engineering in Sousse. We started a challenge for students. We were developing a platform to put medical devices in. One of our team members' cousins was born with congenital deformity, and her parents couldn't afford a prosthesis until she reaches 20 years old. We came to know that they were not available, expensive, or even geographically inaccessible. So we decided to take on this challenge and develop artificial limbs and rehabilitation solutions to people with a more affordable price and competitive technology.
QBionic's leading prosthetic called Hannibal offered advanced features like a rotating joint and an adjustable socket for a comfortable fit. It also uses a magnetic charger, so users don't have to worry about removing batteries. What makes it truly remarkable are its tactile sensors, which provide vibrations when touched, helping to bring back a partial sense of feeling.
Having a local company that manufactures high-performance prosthetics and does not exclude children is a major achievement for Tunisia, and even for patients across Africa. Produced are, from a technical and technological standpoint, are just as good as those made anywhere else in the world. Additionally, the company provides remote follow-up to help patients best adapt to using these prosthetics in their daily lives.
Since its inception, QBionics has poured approximately $300,000 in advancing its technology. The team behind the Tunisian startup is now working to further develop their prosthetic limbs in the coming period, aiming to offer them at competitive prices that will strengthen Tunisia's position in this growing field.
Well, that concludes tonight's news. Thank you for watching, and until next time, have a good one.